The story of Chanan's adventure begins when the boy meets his uncle and aunt. The woman is holding a baby, and the man gives money to his construction equipment, but the promoter's representatives, on the boss's orders, decided to resolve the problem with money. Both parties were. The woman sees her son's angry face, who says that his wife is a demon. The innkeeper's wife wakes up terrified, thinking she is having a nightmare. The woman wakes her husband and tells him she had a terrible dream, and the innkeeper is not at all pleased that his wife woke him up in the middle of the night, but the woman says that in the dream, her bloody son was next to her, saying that his daughter-in-law was a demon and would be devoured. The innkeeper, holding a candle, and his wife go out to the patio. The man reproaches his wife for having recently been madly pleased with his candle. New daughter-in-law. The man and woman approach the closed door of their son's room. Listen, but there is silence behind the door. Suddenly, they hear strange noises coming from the room. The frightened parents begin to push the door, but it won't open because it is locked from the inside. The innkeeper and his wife don't understand why the door won't budge. It seems to them that someone is holding it shut from the inside. They shout at their son to open the door, but nothing happens. Nothing happens, and the woman says she will run to the neighbors to ask for help. The innkeeper urges the neighbors to hurry, because his son is still in there. They push the door on the count of 3, and the door flies open. Shocked, they see a room with a bloody bed, covered with human bones. They notice a blue demon laughing with a bloody mouth. The monster is finishing off a human arm. The neighbors scream in horror at the sight of the demon. The innkeeper's wife, interested in material gain, the issue was resolved. To avoid breaking the deal, the promoter immediately paid compensation picks up the bloody skull, her eyes rolling back, while the woman faints. The neighbors flee from the demon, shouting that the monster has eaten someone. A man stands by as a sobbing mother cries out loud for her son. Lee Chanan and the Taoist arrive at the village. The boy informs the master that they have arrived in Yulin. The old man hands Lee a piece of paper and explains that he will need it in the city. The boy accepts, takes the paper, and reads the name Suan Su on it. Lee asks the old man who he is. The Taoist explains that he is his older brother, meaning a senior apprentice. Chanan wonders where this person is, to which the teacher replies that a demon ate him, which frightens Lee Chanan. The guard checks the guy's luggage and says that everything is fine. Lee and the old man head towards the gate to enter the city, but the guard stops them, saying that entry is forbidden. He hands him a bowl of water, and asks him to drink it. When Chanan inquires about the liquid in the bowl, the guard responds evasively, stating that since he received the order to drink, he should drink and not speak. The old man calmly drinks the liquid from the bowl, remarking that it's just water and flour, as a confused Lee Chanan looks at his teacher. One of the guards comments that the Taoist definitely possesses some skills and suggests that the old man should check the bulletin board once he's in the city. Lee Chanan and the Taoist make their way to a bulletin board where a crowd has assembled. The traveler's attention is drawn by an cash, and Chanan's relatives began to distribute it. The uncle was only offered a few hundred, and he refused the money, telling his relatives to advertisement announcing a search for wise individuals capable of dealing with evil spirits, promising a generous reward for successfully completing the task. The task in the advertisement reveals a blue demon, and Chanan recalls seeing one in his grandfather's book. Considering that he and his master have been in the city for a month and time has passed, the Taoist with the container goes out to buy wine, and Chanan pulls out the small, yellow book that he had hidden in his shirt. He looks at the image of the demon in the book and realizes that the monster's color has changed, and now it resembles the one in the advertisement. Looking at the image of the blue demon, the boy thinks that if he kills this monster, maybe he will figure out why he is in this world. Lee Chanan and the Taoist are standing near a table, waiting for their food. The waiter brings their plates, places them on the table, and warns the diners not to. Burning on the table is a figure depicting a Taoist, and beside it lies a leaf inscribed with a certain symbol. The old man pours wine into a bowl, explaining that he needs the finest wine to properly honor the ancestors, and therefore he is only using the beverage that he personally brought. The old man sets the bowl next to the figure and recites the Forting the Scoff phrase to the spirits of their ancestors. Lanan asks why the master is bowing not only to the ancestor, but also to the talisman itself. The Taoist picks up a leaf bearing the symbol and explains that it is a protective talisman bestowed upon him by his mentor from the celestial school. The master clarifies that this is the reason he must bow to it. Keep it. Chanan's uncle and aunt were shocked to see the relatives fighting over the money. The boy says that, even though he was raised by his grandfather, his old man announces that now that they have paid their respects to the ancestors, they can begin the meal. He then pours the wine from the bowl back into the bottle. Young pumpkin, Lee Chanan, is surprised that the old man always returns for this particular drink, especially since he only ever drinks cheap wine bought on the street. The Taoist. He sniffs the now empty bowl, savoring the lingering aroma of the wine it held. Lee Chan pours the wine into the bowls and asks his master why he can't drink the wine all at once instead of performing this strange ritual. The Taoist replies that the guy is just wet behind the ears and doesn't understand anything. The master drinks the wine from his bowl and says that after properly enjoying the aroma, he will savor the drink itself, and then a single sip will be as satisfying as the entire pot. The old man then says that, while he was out getting wine, he learned that there are 2 job openings in this city. The master suggests that it might be worth going to the So family's house in the north, where it is rumored that there are ghost-related problems. The Taoist tells him that he encountered the same dead man issue at another house, which he found quite simple to resolve. The master. He explains that he and Lanan will be going to the house of the influential Sao family. The boy, confused, asks what the rush is all about. The teacher doesn't understand his question, and he asks the student what the most important thing in the world is. Lee thinks that he has been running around with the old man for a month, and his skills don't seem outstanding, nor does his courage, but the teacher is good at sensing problems and is lucky. Chanan responds to the old man that what matters most in the LTA, relatives helped him, and he never claimed any material wealth. He explains that he will take something from the house as a memento and leave, and the relatives are, world is security. The teacher gets angry and nervously yells at the student, explaining that food is the most important thing. He tells Lee to finish it. Fast food because they have to go on a mission to earn their meal. Lee and the old man meet in an alley close to the Sangel family's residence. The master pierces the talisman sheet with his sword and says, "Jade Dragon Talisman, heed my call." The talisman illuminates, and the old man's sense of smell awakens. The Taoist abruptly throws himself to the ground and starts sniffing around. Lee gives the master a condescending look, thinking he'll never get used to his strange behavior of crawling on the ground. The old man sniffs something out, finds a hole in the fence, and declares that what they're looking for is inside. The old man sniffs and abruptly recoils in disgust. Chanan asks in surprise what the master smelled and what that horrible stench is. Carrion or a rotting corpse, but the old man waves his hand away, explaining that he smelled dog urine. Lee Chanan finds this amusing, but then asks what's wrong with the spirits and to sense if there is someone dangerous, to which the master responds that there is only a minor spirit present. He tells the student that it is time to fight against demons and to expel evil spirits. The boy runs forward impatiently, but the teacher stops him, telling him that they are going the wrong way. Mistaken. Lane doesn't understand why the old man is pulling him in the wrong direction, since he was heading to the Song family's house. The teacher says they are going to Kang. Happy with the boy's decision, Chanan heads home and overhears one of the children asking their parents to play mahjong with their cousin, Zoe's house, leaving the boy perplexed. As they approach the house, the travelers overhear the neighbors talking about Zoe's wife. They say they feel sorry for a woman whose husband was lazy in life and continues to ruin her life even after death. An exhausted woman stands in front of the house with her young son clinging to her. A blue energy streak is seen near them, and the old man draws his sword, ordering the spirit to reveal its true form. People become frightened upon seeing the ghost. However, the spirit appears before the family. The son recognizes him as his father, and the woman recognizes him as her husband. The man's spirit appears completely normal, and the old man says that he is still hiding his true identity. Suddenly, the man's appearance transforms. He loses his eyes and teeth, his hair becomes disheveled, and his clothes are torn, with his face covered in abrasions and bruises. The master realizes that the man has been beaten with sticks. The old man, he resolutely begins to recite a prayer. Exalted beings of the 10 directions, beings as numerous as grains of sand. The Taoist raises his sword. He continues to recite the prayer, saying, "Transfiguring worlds, saving all celestial and human beings, unite your blessings to save the world." With one voice. Following a burst of energy, the spirit departs. Sue's wife thanks the honorable Taoist for saving her husband and freeing his soul. The woman holds a basket of eggs and says that her family lives modestly, so this is all she can offer as payment. The Taoist takes a single, they allow him to enter the house, and he looks around, bewildered. He realizes that his relatives have taken everything they could from the house. He sees a egg from the basket and says that there is nothing to worry about and that it will be enough. A cheerful Lee Chan runs towards the master with a scroll in his hand. The old man, He asks the student where he has been. The boy hands the scroll to the master, who is visibly surprised. Chanan cheerfully announces that he has obtained the yellow parchment for the master, accepting a new assignment. Someone grabs the old man's leg, pleading with the honorable Taoist to save his master. The master sees the Song family's housekeeper kneeling before him. He says he witnessed the Taoist using his magical powers to save the So family and finds it unbelievable. The old man tells the housekeeper not to worry, promising he won't let the evil spirits run rampant. He asks her to rise from her knees, explaining that he needs to speak with his disciple first. The Taoist grabs Ali by the throat, angrily demanding to know what he's done. The boy wonders if the little spirit poses a danger to them, especially since the master was the only one who saw it there. The old man replies that they need to hurry to get rid of this problem. Lee Chanan then asks how much money the master received from the So family. The old man responds that he taught the boy that the purpose of their sect is to help people, subdue evil spirits, and fight against demons, so he shouldn't charge anything for performing the ritual. Lee, confused, reminds the master that time is running out and they don't have any food. The old man and his disciple arrive at the Sang residence, where they are greeted by yellow notebook on the shelf and takes it. The house is completely destroyed. At night, before going to bed, Lee Chanan reflects on how he grew up in this house and family members and servants. The teacher realizes that the family has been affected by the spirit, as they look emaciated, but there are no signs of that. None of them are physically mutilated or ill. The old man inquires about Mr. Sang's whereabouts. His worried family members open the door for the guests. The Taoist and Lanan enter the room and observe Mr. Sang sitting in a chair, appearing very unwell. The old man asks disciple if he notices anything, and the boy replies that he sees a dark entity on Mr. Sang's shoulder. The master activates the spiritual key talisman and perceives a humanoid ghost with saliva dripping from its mouth. Master Sang asks if dealing with this ghost will be difficult. Taoist responds that it will be problematic. Mr. Sang, who has a ghost resembling a blue baby hanging behind him, asks the Taoist who would want to kill him for no reason. She replies that she is the daughter of Sang, the owner of the residence. He is very surprised and asks the Taoist not to joke around like that. The old man replies that he wasn't joking. He says he isn't joking and asks Mr. Sang if he hasn't lost any children in recent years. Mr. Sang becomes desperate, thinking there is no way out and that his life cannot be saved. The old man tells him that there is a way out, but it will require an altar ceremony during which the Taoists invoke the ancestors and the deities to help them. He asks the master if the little spirits are so powerful that they cannot handle it without the help of the knows every corner of it, but he doesn't remember the yellow notebook at all. The boy begins to read the lines. The winding road leads to a secluded place. The water. Altar ceremony. The old man says he is not sure he can do it, not even with the help of an altar. The Taoist imagines several hands reaching to the baby. He explains that nobody knows how many times the baby has been born into this family, but each time, the baby has been killed, and after so many deaths, its rage has become immense. Sang's family discusses how this could have possibly happened, and they hope that the Taoist master will have a solution. The master is ready to begin the ritual. He asks the servants to prepare fresh milk with powdered sugar, saying that it is the best way to lure the demon child. The master takes out his sword and tells Lee Chanan to drive the demon away from Sang so that they can begin. Chanan asks what will happen to the master. Looking at Sang, who is sleeping with the demon on his shoulder, the master replies that it is better for him to remain in that state. Lee moves away from the master and places a bowl on the floor. Full of milk and powdered sugar, he speculates that the imp has a very unusual appearance, so it would be fortunate if everything goes well with the master. Sword in hand, Lee recites the incantation. The God of the beginning, who grants forgiveness, the 5 venerable original supreme spirits, the great within reflected in, the 8 trigrams, the 5 elders that indicate the destiny from which there is no escape. The little demon jumps off Lord Song's shoulder and approaches the milk bowl. Lee Chanan and the old man watch the little monster, and after it finishes the milk, the demon collapses. Lee Chanan and his teacher try to see if forbidden from wisdom flows, and the borrowed wind howls, the fog creeps in, and the prayers of the clear sky roar, while the prayers of they succeeded, the man hammering a huge nail with a wooden mallet. There are many nails of this type around the demon baby, securing the ropes that bind the monster. A massive talisman hangs in front of the baby, and incense burns nearby. The master begins to recite a prayer over the child. Devil. The phoenix's light illuminates the sky, filling it with power. The ghosts turn around to flee. Lee Chanan notices that the baby's head is no longer. swollen, which means the ceremony still needs to be completed for the soul to find peace. A pale Sang points his finger toward where he sees the ghost, and Chanan thinks they have done the job well. Suddenly, a fiery-eyed baby demon turns toward them. With a loud scream, it breaks the ropes and runs toward the old man, who thought he was finished. Lee Chanan rushes to the teacher's aid, grabbing the evil demon by the neck. The old man is surprised and realizes that the guy can not only see demons, but also touch them. He saves the master, but notices that the demon's neck is strangely tense. The guy doesn't understand why, and suddenly, the monster bares its fangs and glares at Lee Chanan, growling and trying to break free. The guy remembers that he has some candies from his world in his pants pocket. He offers the candy to the baby demon's mouth, but it clenches its teeth. The boy thinks that this should be enough to confuse the monster. After eating the candy, the baby falls asleep, and Chanan holds him in his hands and calls, "Nephew," apologizing that the amount is too small. He explains that the money from demolishing the house is being divided among everyone, and Chanan isn't in a hurry for rain rush down. Lee Chanan is surprised by this. He thinks they are the 72 earth transformation techniques from Taoist practices, but the boy is not. For the master, the old man waves the brush he's holding in his hand as if painting in the air and begins to recite a prayer. The first strike, crush the earth. The second strike of the ancestral sword. The third strike banishes demons and spirits for thousands of li. The master draws a symbol on the forehead of the ghost, who now appears as a normal child. The spirit soars towards the sky, and a servant manages to catch the Lord before he falls. The master says that the evil spirit has been expelled, the soul has been saved, and the living are safe. He explains to the servants that they must take the Lord to his chambers, as now he simply needs to rest and recover. The master and his apprentice are invited to the guest house so they can rest. Sitting at the table, the old man asks Lee Chanan if he has realized how dangerous his job is. The Taoist says that it's best not to accept commissions from powerful families. It is speculated that the evil spirit did not harm ordinary people, and may have specifically favored the wealthy at the expense of the poor. The teacher reacts excitedly to these words, placing the glass abruptly on the table, nearly spilling the drink. The old man explains to the disciple that he who sows the wind will reap the whirlwind. He says that beneath every rich man's house lie several tombs of his servants, and in the well, one can find the remains of young girls. The teacher explains that dealing with ordinary people is much easier, but when it comes to the wealthy, it can lead to be sure it's all real. Chanan reasons that the 72 crushing demon transformation techniques, better known as the 72 transformations, are one of Sambuk's main techniques, someone's ruin or death. The old man says that the richer the family, the more evil people and malevolent spirits lie in wait for them. Chanan is surprised by the teacher reacts, thinking the old man is still simplistic about certain matters. The boy asks the teacher what's going on with that skin demon, Blue, for whom they're offering a good reward. Looking at the teapot on the table and his cup, the old man calmly states that this monster is very ferocious. The teacher says that, judging from the announcement, this thing has already acquired a physical form, meaning it's an evolved spirit that has grown to the level of a demon. The old man seems indifferent as he takes a drink. Lee and Chan have decided to get more information about this demon. The teacher notices that the guy who normally only pretends to listen during these kinds of conversations is seriously interested this time. Suddenly, they hear there were loud sounds of drums, trumpets, and other musical instruments. The teacher and the student are surprised and don't understand where the sounds are coming from. Lee and the Taoist leave the house and see the musicians in front of them. Master Dao is greeted by Huan, the magistrate of Yulin, who explains that the Dao, blue-skinned demon, has caused a lot of trouble for the people of the city, and the residents cannot sleep well. Huan says he is delighted that the honorable teacher has agreed to face the demon, risking his life for the town to eliminate such a serious threat and restore. Transformations are one of the main techniques of Sambuk, who is a monkey king that possesses a variety of abilities. This is a character from Prosperity to the City. On this occasion, Wang Taon came to express the gratitude and appreciation of the people of Yulin. The old man is amazed at what he has heard. Remember when he agreed to such a thing? Lee Chanan, standing behind the old man, says that his master observed the sky yesterday and declared that this demon escaped from the underworld, and, since it was fortunate enough to escape, the monster now roams this world in female form, devouring people. He adds that, after escaping, the demon was weakened and exhausted, so it resorted to deception and has now satiated itself with human flesh. The terrified townspeople say that since the demon has been eating people even in its exhausted state. Now that it is satiated, it will undoubtedly continue to do so. Chanan says he learned about the demon's existence yesterday from local officials and now realizes that the monster prefers to devour young boys and girls with delicate skin. A man among the crowd says they now understand why the demon devoured the Wang family's son. Another villager asks what the villagers should do now. They plead with the Taoist master to save them and help them confront the monster. The old man recalls that he was the one who taught the apprentice to frighten people with words, but he doesn't understand why he's doing it now. The Taoist looks at the apprentice with skepticism. The boy continues his speech. Lee Chanan says that his master is a true Taoist master of the heavenly school, so he can't waste his time destroying such a petty demon, the boy informs him. 4 classic Chinese novels, asterisk, Journey to the West, asterisk. On the second page, the boy sees a picture of a demon, and Chanan assumes that it is a book about demons, that such an insignificant task will be handled by him alone. The old man is surprised that his disciple wants to take care of the blue-skinned demon himself. Juan says, smiling, that it's true what they say. The disciple is a reflection of the master. He calls Lee Chanan master and asks, when will the Taoist disciple be ready to begin his journey? The companion replies that it will be immediately after he returns to the room with the teacher. Ice paper for the homework assignment. Once they are in the room, the old man scolds Ali for his recklessness, saying that he wouldn't go looking for that demon even with his vast experience in destroying evil. The teacher explains that he has been practicing for decades, and his student hasn't even taken the first step on the Taoist path yet. Taoist path. He says angrily that it's like trying to defeat his own shadow. Chanan tries to convince his master that he has to do it because he doesn't have. Another option is that the old man yells at him, saying he isn't a suicidal master, leaving Lee Chanan confused. The Taoist then tells him that the talisman he taught him to use is used by his brothers at school to hunt evil spirits and demons. The master explains that he is the only one who uses this talisman to see spirits, evil spirits and demons. He remembers that Xuan Sui's senior classmate constantly challenged him and laughed at the master's cowardice. But in the end, only the old man survived, while the older brother died at an advanced age, without a single bone remaining. Lee Chanan takes out a small yellow book hidden under daughter and spirits. The guy is surprised that the other pages are blank and calls it nonsense. But suddenly, Lee Chanan hears a loud sound that his shirt shows the teacher a page with a blue-skinned demon on it and explains that this is the reason why he wants to destroy it. Monster. The old man is surprised to see the drawing and realizes that the book the student has often been leafing through contains the same demon as the one in the advertisement. The teacher realizes that the demon is closely intertwined with his student's life, so he places the talisman on the table. The teacher says that if Chanan is so eager to disappear, he will act as if he never had a student, and the old man leaves, slamming the door loudly. He thanks the teacher for the talisman he left behind. Chanan heads out towards Huan and the townspeople, who are happy to see the teacher. The teacher shows them a piece of paper on which a demon-slaying tool is drawn. The man asks for help to recreate it as quickly as possible, and Wang Tuan agrees. Hurriedly, Lee Chanan, clad in armor, stands outside Wang Sining's inn alongside other warriors. He is met by the sorrowful innkeeper, Lee. Chanan recalls the magistrate mentioning that Wang Zheng is only 30 years old, but looks 60. The warrior concludes that grief has worn the man down. Terrible screams erupt from the building, and an emaciated woman peers from behind the door, calling out for her son. The innkeeper apologizes, explaining that it is his wife, who is unable to cope with her pain after a demon devoured their son. The woman screams, begging for her son's return, and Chanan reminds him of opera singing. The guy clutches his head, saying it feels heavy as lead. Lee feels as if he is in a dark space surrounded by broken glass. Innkeeper, to tell him more about the demon. Wang Seng becomes frantic and says that this demon transforms into a beautiful young woman, but in reality, it was huge and terrifying. The innkeeper panics, clutching his head, and says that the demon tricked them and ate his son. Lee Chanan realizes that Hang Seng is too scared to give any useful information, so there is no way to get more clues. He asks the innkeeper to show him the room where his son was killed. Wang Seng agrees, but says he has boarded up the room, and Chanan sees how securely the doors are boarded up. As soon as the innkeeper opens the room, the warriors cover their faces and turn around, complaining about the strong stench. Lee Chanan also doesn't understand what the smell is, but he suggests to the warriors that they stay outside, and he goes to inspect the room himself. He covers his nose with his hand and enters the room, where he sees many Bloody objects are scattered around, and he realizes that no one has cleaned the place since those events occurred. This place seems suitable for spells and the like. He takes out a talisman and tries to activate it. At first, the talisman lights up, but it soon goes out. The guy runs out of the room coughing violently. The warriors are waiting for him outside. Lee Chanan thinks the room really stinks, but he begins to realize that he can now smell a demon, and the guy smiles, surrounding himself with a group of men with torches and spears. They advance through the mountainous terrain. Lee Chanan is the first to light the way forward. He realizes that the smell is... Suddenly everything calms down, and the man places his hands on the table. Lee Chanan opens his eyes, surprised to find the table in front of him, because just a moment ago, getting stronger and stronger, which means that the demon is getting closer and closer. One of the warriors addresses Chanan, calling him master. The warrior says that it's getting dark and everyone is exhausted. They ask if they can return in the morning. Lee thinks it's too dangerous to involve ordinary people in the search for the devil. He tells the soldiers to remain here for a while and asks them to relay a message to the master. The soldiers promise to deliver the message to the master, and the man allows the warriors to return, urging them to quickly leave the dangerous place. Lee Chanan looks at the full moon and realizes that it is too dangerous to wander this area alone at night hunting demons. Lee notices an abandoned temple and decides that a rest would do him good. He sees that inside is a statue of a headless deity, and Chanan thinks this temple is so ancient that it's now impossible to understand in whose honor it was built. Erected, the guy approaches the enormous statue and asks the deity for permission to spend the night, hoping not to incur the deity's wrath for disturbing it. As night falls, a storm begins. Lee sleeps by the fire, but upon hearing a noise, he wakes up and asks, "Who's there?" He demands that the intruder reveal themselves, and Lee Chanan sees a beautiful girl standing in the doorway, soaked in the rain. The girl enters the temple and asks if she can take shelter from the rain there. He notices talismans placed next to the boy, and he realizes that they aren't warning him of any danger. Chanan allows the girl to enter, and she thanks him, calling him a Taoist. He apologizes for he was in bed. When he looks up, he sees a hole in the ceiling, through which the bright moon is visible, and he doesn't recognize where he is. Lee Chanan is disoriented, bothering him, explaining that she is very wet from the rain and extremely cold. Lee Chanan offers the girl his Hanfu clothing, as she might be feeling cold in her current clothes. Soaked, the girl gratefully accepts the clothes, saying that she is Wu Yulin's daughter and was out for a stroll with her friends. The girl is happy to have met Taoist Su, and Lee Chanan tells his new acquaintance that she's lucky she met a poor Taoist like him first, and not an evil spirit. The girl seems startled by this, but then asks if evil spirits really exist. Miss Wang is confused to see Lee Chanan staring intently at her. The boy says that slipped out by accident, and turning his back to the girl, he explains that the magistrate hired him to get rid of the demon. The girl looks surprised. Lee Chanan prepares for bed, telling Miss Wang that it's late and she should probably go to sleep. Ready to head to Yulin at dawn, the girl smiles almost imperceptibly. A light appears in the temple at night as she sleeps. The girl removes her clothes and then her skin, revealing her fangs and transforming into a demon with blue skin and burning red eyes. The demon, grinning, holds the girl's skin in its hands and looks at the sleeping boy. Saliva drips from its fangs. The demon contemplates which part of the boy's body it should begin its meal with. It pauses at the neck, deciding that blood from whiplashes tastes better. The demon approaches Lee Chanan, its clawed paw. He remembers that he had just closed the book, but now finds it open in his hands. He notices an inscription on the book, "Immersion in Silence," and reaches for its potential victim, but the demon notices that the guy is reading a book. Chanan says in a calm voice that the evil spirit is the same one from the illustration. The evil demon recognizes himself in the illustration and realizes the guy was only pretending to be asleep, which enrages the evil spirit, and steps on Lee Chanan's armor, declaring that the Taoist boy wearing the armor can't possibly have any talent, meaning a single bite will end his life. The monster is surprised to see Lee Chanan pointing a gun at him, and the boy shoots, causing the evil spirit to lose his balance. Lee Chanan decides this makeshift weapon takes too long to power up and fire, and he's lucky he managed to sink his teeth into the demon. The evil spirit covers his wounds with his hand, complaining that the wounds hurt and itch, but dismisses them as minor and harmless. Significant skin damage. Suddenly, the demon realizes he cannot move, collapsing to the ground, confused as to why he can't get up. The demon. He figures the monk must have done something to the ammunition. Lee Chanan is pleased that the magic is working. He holds a massive axe in his hand and declares that There's no time to lose. Standing before a statue of an unknown deity, Lee Chanan leans down towards a demon chained to the ground. The demon doesn't understand what the guy is about to do. Lee bites his finger until it bleeds. He runs his bloody finger along the axe, which is pointed at the demon, and recites the incantation, the loneliness. He doesn't understand the inscription, and Chanan decides there's no point in standing still, pondering it. He approaches the door, wanting to see what's. Sky is dazzling, and the earth is harmonious. And with this strike, the demon shall die. Lee Chanan draws his sword and attacks the evil spirit, the demon. He screams and tries to escape the trap. Lightning bolts appear above the building, and the demon's bloody hand lies on the temple floor. Chanan cuts the other one, the arm of the living demon, and splits the torso in half. A guy in bloody clothes is standing with an axe over the demon he has cut into pieces. Lee Chanan decides this will suffice and brings his sword closer to the demon to deliver a final blow. With a swift strike, the guy cuts off the demon's head, and it sinks into the ground. He says he did a good job and that it is finally over. He speculates that the improvised fuse took too long to burn out, wasted away, meaning that only the book could help him. The boy decides to check if there is a new entry in the book. He focuses on the skin left by the demon takes it in his hands and notices the skin is soft and smooth, indicating it belonged to a human. Lee Chanan opens the yellow book. The man. He is surprised to see that nothing has changed. He doesn't understand why there's no reaction to him manipulating the blue-skinned demon. The severed head of the evil spirit lies behind the man. Suddenly, Lee finds himself back in a dark space filled with loud noises, and he feels as if he is flying somewhere. Lee Chanan finds himself in his own bed and can't believe he's back. His clothes are covered in blood. Suddenly, the money. He remembers losing his father when he was young and being raised by his grandfather, and the building next to the construction equipment is his grandfather's house. Outside, and sees that he is in a town with many people walking along the street. The man doesn't understand what this place is, or how he ended up here. One of the door opens, and a man appears in the doorway to tell him that the police are coming for the thief. The man notices that Chanan is standing in front of him, and asks. After managing to return, the man tells him, confused, that it's a long story. Meanwhile, in the other world, the old man arrives at the temple where Lee Chanan's fight with the demon had taken. Lee Chanan's fight with the demon took place. It continues to rain outside, and the old man calls out to his disciple, calling him a bastard, while trying to see if Chanan is still here. The Taoist takes off his hat and holds his sword in his hand. He sees the bloody floor of the temple and the disciple's armor. The old man is startled and doesn't understand how this could have happened. The Taoist puts the sword down on the ground, sits next to the statue of an unknown deity, and covers his face with his hands. He says, frustrated, why his disciple didn't listen to him. At the very same moment, Lee Chanan, in his world, digs a hole in his grandfather's grave and buries. In it, within the yellow book, the boy states that it's best to leave him at his grandfather's house, expressing his preference for a peaceful and uneventful life over those hectic adventures. Lee bids farewell to his grandfather, wishing him a good night's rest and promising to return, then averts his gaze and apologizes to his teacher, Chanan, as he recalls the night before, when he was sitting at his computer and received a call from his apartment's landlord. The man wanted to inform him that his son was getting married and wanted to renovate the apartment that the boy was renting in preparation for the wedding. Lee congratulated the apartment owner on the joyous occasion, but the man then informed him that vendors are selling sweets on the street and a girl is offering fresh mountain flowers. A salesman peeks out from the shop where the smoke is billowing, offering. The boy would need to move out within the next 2 days. Recalling this conversation, Lee walks down the street, his phone in hand. Looking for a building, the man tells him that although he's been in the magical world for a month, only a week has passed in his reality, but he still managed to get fired from his job. Lee Chanan reflects on the fact that problems never come alone, and now he has to find a new apartment. He receives a call from an unknown woman with a fan who asks if he's looking for a place to live. Lee answers affirmatively, saying that's why he came here. The woman says she noticed him looking around and immediately realized why he was there. Lee Chanan thanks his aunt for the help she's provided and checks the browser on his smartphone. He says he needs the house at address 21, first block, apartment 44. The woman and the men, who are playing checkers behind his back, seem surprised. The woman attempts to explain to Lee Chanan that there's an issue with the apartment, but the man stops her, prevents him from finishing his sentence. He introduces himself as Liu, stating that Mr. Chan negotiated the rent with him. The apartment owner explains that he has been waiting for Lee Chanan for a long time. Lee and the owner go inside the building, and the man points to an apartment located at the end of the hallway. Chanan notices a mirror on the door with an evil spirit marker on it and thinks that while some older people still follow that custom, this is excessive. The guy examines the image more closely and thinks that freshly cooked noodles are offered to a guest. Lannon realizes he's hungry and that the food looks very tasty. The merchant places a steaming bowl of noodles. If the owner is offering a 3-bedroom apartment for only $1,000, there has to be a catch. Lee Chanan enters the apartment, silently questioning the situation. Lou tells him that her father-in-law used to live here, and the older generation tends to believe in various superstitions. The boy glances around the spacious apartment, and furnished with style. The landlord opens the window, saying he needs to air out the place because it's been a long time since anyone has been here. Liu says that, as you can see, Chanan, the apartment is large and well furnished, and he wouldn't rent it out so cheaply if he didn't need the money. Suddenly, near the bedside, at night, among the flowers, Lee Chanan sees the ghost of a girl wearing a bloody nightgown. The spirit has her head bowed on her knees, sitting on the floor, and in the middle of the room are the spirits of 2 men. The guy is bewildered, looks up, and sees several more ghosts, women and men. The guy realizes that the apartment is so cheap to rent because it has a lot of ghosts, and the 2 spirits decide how they are going to scare people. One of them suggests using the closing of eyes as a scare tactic because people don't usually see total darkness, and to make people wet their pants from fear. The spirits choose who to scare. First, their choice falls on the owner of the apartment. The ghosts decide to scare him more because they don't want him to bring anyone to the house. Leu says that 2 days ago, he had already shown the apartment to other people who were interested. He tries to convince Lee that, hot on the table. Wally is surprised to see that he's already sitting at the table, and the man is staring at the black noodles. The shopkeeper is then approached by if he takes advantage of this option, he will not find such a favorable offer, not only in China, but in the entire world. Lannan shows him a door that opens, and it closes on its own. A worried Liu looks at the door and convinces Chanan that it's just the wind and the window must have broken. He suggests that she continue with the conversation. Outside, one of the spirits covers Liu's eyes. The apartment owner screams and faints, wetting his pants in fear. The second ghost praises his blue-eyed friend, Boo, and says that these people don't even realize how terrifying he is. Lee Chanan leans over Mr. Liu, while the ghosts watch her and prepare to scare her. The second ghost stealthily approaches Chanan from behind and reaches out his hands. Suddenly, she turns around to face the ghost, who is scared that she might see him. The other ghost gets angry with his friend and tells him that he is too slow, but Lee Chanan spontaneously swings his arm, striking the ghost out of the air. The ghost goes flying off into the distance, and the man snaps Mr. Liu back to consciousness by slapping him on the cheeks. The pale apartment owner looks at Lee fearfully, asking if he is also dead. Lee Chanan says that Mr. Liu apparently still hasn't regained his senses and slaps him on the cheek once more. Liu reassures the man, telling him that he's all right now. He tries to explain something about the ghost, Ali, but the man simply laughs, saying he thought the apartment owner, customer who complains that the noodles are bland. The peddler says he'll fix it right away. He tears off his own head and drips blood onto the noodles, and was ill because of his health issues. Lee Chanan lies, saying he dragged Mr. Liu toward the exit to take him to the hospital. And that was when he woke up, Mr. Liu was bewildered at being dragged across the floor, but Chanan nonchalantly replied that it was no big deal before asking if the apartment owner had a contract with him. The man said he liked everything and was willing to rent the place. Dusk then fell, enveloping the apartment building. The apartment building where they had rented him a place to live. The apartment was inhabited by many evil spirits who began to tell their stories. They called the new tenant a monster, and one of the women said that he had died an unjust death. One of the ghosts lamented that this was unfair. Lee, stone-faced, Chanan stood in the middle of the room, surrounded by ghosts. 2 of the spirits suggested that he join them, but they turn on the television for him. The spirits try to make terrifying noises, but the guy just yawns and doesn't react at all. The spirit girl tells the spirit Gu that everything they're doing is useless. He responds that, if talking isn't working, he can move on to intimidating physical actions. The spirit girl supposes that the guy might know magic. The spirit, Gu, replies that doesn't mean anything, since they've already seen monks and Taoists. His friend says, frightened, that those were just rogues, but this one isn't. Gu nervously tells his friend that he was a coward when he was alive, and he's still a coward after death. The spirit of Human bones and hands can be seen in the oven fire. Chanan is shocked by what he's witnessing. He notices the girl selling flowers, who is holding her arm. Gu becomes angry and expresses his confidence that the entire crowd can easily handle just one man. He stretches, wanting to punch Lee. Chanan suggests that his spirit friends watch carefully as Lee sits on the couch with a sly smile. And as the spirit approaches him, Chanan hits him with a willow twig. Gu writhes in pain. Lee Chanan tells the ghosts that there is a reason he brought the willow twig with him, because it can defeat the guy hints that every little thing can make a difference. Lee tells the ghosts that the twig won't atomize their essence, but it will hurt them. The ghosts get scared, and Gu clutches his bruised head. Lee Chanan takes out a talisman and applies it to better see the ghosts. He counts the ghosts and discovers that there are 10 male spirits, 5 female spirits, and 3 children in the room. Lee asks in surprise how they all got here, and the ghosts remain silent. Puzzled, Chanan asks Gu to speak first, but the ghost twists his head, trying to figure out who he's addressing. Gu is confused and says he can't say exactly how he died, but he remembers that after dying, he couldn't breathe and flew through the city until he reached this room. The ghost says that this is where his disintegrated soul stabilized, but if you enter this room, it's impossible to leave. Gu admits that he doesn't remember anything from before. Chanan asks the other spirits if the same thing happened to them, but the ghosts just cut from a dead man, a customer. A girl buys a plum from the cellar, and then the girl's face transforms into that of a monster with a torn-out eye, and look at him confused. He analyzes what kind of place this is, where you can enter and save your soul, but from which you cannot leave. The boy remembers that his teacher, he told him about a certain strange area, known as the Land of the Spirits, also called the Cage of the Spirits. Lee Chanan remembers the Taoist, saying that it was a place to keep and nurture spirits, but that it could become a trap for unsuspecting visitors. The boy realizes that, in time, the ghosts will go insane and begin to devour each other, eventually leading to the emergence of a ghost king that the cage will be unable to contain. And once it's free, the evil spirit will cause a great deal of trouble for people. Lee imagines horrifying scenes based on what the professor told him. The boy realizes that not everything is as simple as it seems. Lee Chanan clenches the willow twig in his hands and thinks that whether it involves demonic spirits, ghosts, monsters, Taoist magic, or alchemy, spiritual energy is at the heart of everything. Chanan argues that the energy of his world is too weak and contains too many impurities. Unnecessary impurities are present within it, and only the special structure of the body allows a person to generate energy on their own. Lee realizes that, if it weren't for, therefore, he wouldn't have been able to continue using the magical talisman from the other world after the energy of that space was exhausted. Lee concludes that if a person from his world dies and does not go directly to the afterlife, their soul will simply disappear. That's why the spirits view the room as an oasis in the desert. Chanan asks, a long tongue. Lee Chanan stares in horror at the plate he's holding, his hands trembling with terror. He sees something black and worm-like has appeared in the ghosts, which one of them has been here the longest. W responds that he has been in the room for 7 years. Lee realizes that this isn't enough time because the house, it's over 20 years old, and if the spirit land was originally in this location, the building couldn't have been built here. The boy suggests that the ghosts should live together. Everyone leaves. Wale wonders if there might have been someone else in the house, but the boy doesn't want to think too deeply about it because, after renting the apartment, he barely has enough money to eat. Lee Chanan is standing on a bridge, surrounded by water. The man is holding a large flashlight. Lee hears strange noises and asks, "Who's there?" Suddenly, a clawed hand emerges from the darkness, reaching for him. The man runs, waving the flashlight, and sees a zombie in front of him. The sinister demon with burning eyes bares its fangs and growls fiercely. Lee Chanan takes out the talisman, but it crumbles in his hands. Lee is shocked as the zombie lunges at him, the monster's fangs drawing nearer, too close for comfort. Chanan wakes up in his bed and realizes it was all just a dream. The sleep-deprived guy sits on the edge of his bed and thinks, "Why have I been having so many dreams about zombies getting closer and closer to me lately?" Lee Chanan walks around the apartment, pondering the yellow book. It seems to him that since this book was able to transport him to the past, it might also be able to control him from 1,000 kilometers away. He intends to dish. He's astonished by what he sees. Lee looks at the headless shopkeeper who is stirring noodles with a long wooden stick, and in front of the shopkeeper, there is a resist the influence of the book and refuses to obey it. The boy opens the door to the room and sees a multitude of ghosts standing on the threshold. Smiling, He doesn't understand why they've all gathered. W calls Chief Ali and explains that ever since he moved in and they got electricity, the ghosts who had been having gone without entertainment for so long, they decided to turn on the television, but they accidentally broke it. Lee looks down at the ghosts condescendingly, but they hear a knock at the door. Chanan opens it to find the apartment owner standing in the doorway, holding a cross and rosary, with a sword slung over his shoulders, and 2 guards standing beside him. Liu fearfully asks Chanan if he's the one. The boy pretends not to understand why the apartment owner is acting so strangely. The television is working perfectly. Mr. Liu asks the guards if they've tuned in the TV and noticed anything strange. 2 men are carrying a heavy box. One of them mentions seeing symbols with evil spirits in the apartment. The other man replies that Mr. is quite superstitious for his age. Liu wonders which symbols they are referring to. Lee Chanan tells the ghosts not to thank him, as the money doesn't belong to him. Mr. Liu doesn't realize who is speaking. The next day, early in the morning, Mr. Liu arrives at Lee Chanan's apartment with his brother, the CEO, who wants to ask the guy for a small favor. The landlord explains the nature of the task, saying that the CEO recently obtained a project to construct a facility. Client who has a skull instead of a face. Chanan realizes that he is not in a night market, but a ghost market. Apprehensively, he tries to kafa on a specific plot of land that turned out to be somewhat problematic. Lee Chanan inquires why they consider the land problematic, but he figures it's probably bewitched. He approached him. The CEO mentions he's heard about Lee's abilities, and without much preamble, explains that there is a ghost on the premises that is haunting them for no apparent reason. The man explains that he isn't personally afraid of the ghost, but it has become a problem, because his people are unwilling to work on the construction site. The project is frozen, and the company is losing money every day. The CEO holds up 5 fingers, and says he's willing to offer that amount of money to resolve the ghost problem. Lee Chanan assumes it's 500,000, but the CEO explains, laughing, that since it's an agricultural building, he can only offer 50,000. Lee thought the CEO was talking as if he was going to build a second Zhongnanhai, an artificial lake in Beijing near the new Forbidden City, as it houses the headquarters of the highest authorities. The state authorities are located on the shores of Lake Chang'an. He decides that 50,000 is a good amount of money because he only earns 2,000 inches his newly found job. He accepts the CEO's job offer and begins preparing for the task. He draws a talisman and reads a spell. A malevolent talisman manifests. As the ghosts watch what the man is doing, Lee Chanan reflects on how modern spiritual energy is too weak to be utilized, which is about to be demolished at any moment. Lee Chanan is surprised that his uncles even brought their children along. Chanan remembers that his discreetly look around. He notices that there are few lights ahead and concludes that he's at the end of the market. Chanan realizes that he has to. The man realizes that he is not a member of the Celestial School and therefore does not possess great power. Chang'an looks at the prepared talismans and thinks, who wouldn't dare to undertake such a task? Without them, he hangs the talismans, securing them on a rope, and analyzes the strength of each one. He remembers that the Jade Dragon talisman has always been a trump card up his master's sleeve, but he doesn't know how effective it will be in his own hands. He considers the concentration of the spirit and protection of the Abode talismans, which he classifies as merely auxiliary and lacking destructive power. Lee Chanan is perplexed, thinking that if he encounters an aggressive spirit, he won't have many options available. The guy says the weapon should be used in conjunction with the talismans and takes out a sword that he took from the old man, believing this weapon will help him. The guy waves the sword and is surprised to notice that the sensation using this weapon feels like an extension of his own body. A mosquito buzzes behind Channan's back. The guy swats the insect out of the air and continues practicing with the sword. The ghosts flee in terror. Lee Chanan is thrilled with the sword. He thinks that if he'd had this weapon before, killing the blue-skinned monster would have been much easier, because then he wouldn't have needed to make any plans. He says that he would have simply separated the monster's head from its body, turning it into a ball. Suddenly, Chanan realizes that this isn't his own skill, since he never learned swordsmanship. Chanan believes that he tries to get out of here immediately, but at that moment, someone puts a hand on his shoulder. Chanan sees the shopkeeper holding his own head with his hand, with steam coming out of it. This sword must be a special artifact or the weapon of a god. The boy wonders if that yellow book could be responsible for such an effect on his abilities. He remembers that 72 transformations described a swordsmanship technique. Lee Chanan suggests that his unique body structure gave him an advantage as a beginner, and swordsmanship was the reward for completing the task. The guy sheathes his sword and reflects that life is too unpredictable, so one must be prepared to face any problem in a way that allows them to emerge unharmed. Chanan notices that the ghosts are hiding near the wall and watching him suspiciously. W complains in a plaintive voice that he has mutilated him. The ghost displays his torn clothes and his back covered in scars. Chanan realizes that he was so engrossed in swordsmanship that he forgot about the ghosts. He apologizes to the spirits, and he offers to repair the damage with Taoist-style chicken, and the ghosts end up confessing. Lee prepares dinner, even though the spirits are incorporeal and don't need to eat. They can enjoy the taste of the specially prepared food served as an offering. He explains to the ghosts that this food is called Dharma meal. Cheerfully, W says that his back injury is still affecting his appearance, implying that one gift won't be enough and a couple more gifts will have to be added. More chickens. Lee Chanan agrees, but asks the ghosts to return the favor in some way. Gu asks how they can help the boy and suggests that the ghosts come out and see for themselves. Emerging from his head, the shopkeeper says that the guest hasn't paid yet. Then, he is flanked by other spirits who say that it's impossible for him not to have money. See for yourselves. Lee Chanan leaves the house and sees the apartment owner greeting him. Mr. Lee has arrived by car. W heads over, carrying an umbrella and a sword. Wrapped in black cloth, Chanan is surprised by the apartment owner's arrival. He simply asks if something has happened to the CEO. The man explains that the CEO was unable to come due to being very busy. He tells him that they should quickly head downstairs to finish the job sooner. Mr. Liu believes they can finish before nightfall, but he doesn't understand why he would need an umbrella when it's sunny. Lee Chanan says in a tone of conspiracy that his friend is there and asks if Mr. Liu wants to see him. The apartment owner laughs nervously and tells him not to bother him. Chanan and Mr. Liu arrive at the construction site, and the guy observes that it doesn't look like a farm building at all. He thinks he could have asked for more money. There is another car parked there. Close by, the CEO and the Taoist master emerge. The CEO notices Lee Chanan and apologizes for the long wait, saying the man must have overheard something. Talking about this Taoist master, the old man looks at Ali contemptuously, his humble assistant standing beside the master. The CEO mentions that Master Sangwan belongs to the 65th generation of the Mount Lushan School of True Unity and is the vice president of the Jiangcheng City Taoist Association. The school the master comes from is considered the cradle of Taoism, and there are numerous Taoist temples on Mount Lushan, Dragon Mount, and Tiger Mountain. Money with him. There are dozens of demons staring at the guy, and he's really scared. The shopkeeper then says that money isn't important and that the guest can. Lee Chanan thinks he's never heard of this master, but it's clear to him why the CEO didn't come in person, because he decided to seek out a master. The most reliable interpreter believes the old man seems capable of many things, though this remains to be seen. The CEO hasn't. It's time to introduce Lee Chanan to the Taoist master. Suddenly, the master becomes frightened and declares that this place is truly dangerous. The CEO, concerned, asks what's wrong, and the Taoist master explains that the terrain is unusual, the wind carries evil, and the water is poisonous. The old man describes the phenomenon as a battle between the insidious dragon and the all-devouring tiger. Lee Chanan doesn't understand what the old man is talking about, but his words sound strangely familiar. The CEO is pleased that the true master has recognized that something lurks deep within, but now he must decide what course of action to take. The old man tells the CEO to put aside his confusion, saying, "There's a way out of this situation." The Taoist says he needs to carefully examine the scene. He needs to carefully examine the crime scene to reach a conclusion. The CEO responds that he trusts the master and asks him to follow. Lee Chanan. Lee Chanan thinks that, when it comes to intimidating talk, this master is as good as his own master. They all go to the backyard, and the CEO says that's where it all began. He explains that the workers complained about hearing a woman's voice and seeing a silhouette at night. Everyone goes into a dark room and turns on their flashlights. The CEO, "Pay in another way." The merchant puts his head back on his neck. Lee Chanan asks if he has to pay, and the shopkeeper responds affirmatively, says that he suspected the employees were just being lazy and didn't pay attention to what they said, but later, they all demanded to quit working because of it. The ghost's fault. At first, the CEO thought it was nonsense and decided to check it out himself, but that night, he actually saw a ghost, feminine with his own eyes. The man says he didn't believe in such things before, but now he can't give up. The old man orders him to take his sacred relics, and follow him. The Taoist says there is no need to be afraid because it is easy to believe what you see, but the master intends to confront the evil spirit. Behind them, 3 men pull a cart carrying relics. One of the guards illuminates the path with a lantern but hears strange sounds. Suddenly, someone grabs Mr. Liu by the arm. It turns out to be Lee Chanan, who asks him why he is touching the walls. Mr. Liu responds that he is looking for a light switch because it's too scary in the dark. Suddenly, a loud scream is heard. The CEO and the foreman rush over to the guard, who has fallen to the ground. The man asks what happened. The guard says he saw something terrifying. He points in the direction of what he saw, and Taoist and Lee Chanan are left perplexed when they see the huge face of a creepy ghost with fangs pressed against the window. Everyone present, except Lee Chanan, screams in horror. The guy walks over to the wall, finds a switch, and turns on the light. The CEO realizes that it's just graffiti in front of them, and the ghosts with fiery red eyes get even closer to Chanan. The merchant offers the guest the option to pay with a heart, liver, spleen, lungs, or kidneys. Mr. Liu screams in a panic, covering his face with his hands. The CEO pushes him and tells him not to make any noise, as it will attract a real ghost. The director general gets angry and says he will fire whoever made the graffiti. He asks the master what was wrong with the drawing. Taoist lies, saying that he realized right away that there was nothing wrong with the drawing, and that's what he wanted to warn everyone about, except the guy beat him to it by turning on the lights. The director general remembers that he never had time to introduce Lee Chanan to the master, and says that the guy is young but has a real gift. Suddenly, the graffiti begins to growl and move. The director general and the foreman scream in panic, trembling with fear. The old man says he is the master of the School of the True Unity of Mount Lung Usan, and that he will not let the ghost run amok, saying people are confused because they see Master Lee's fear. Chanan realizes that he has no energy, which isn't surprising, because even ghosts have a hard time maintaining their form here, let alone practice. The guy starts to realize that these aren't ghosts at all. He picks up a brick and throws it against the glass. He sees that behind the glass, there was only a small white fox. Chanan informs the others, and the Taoist, looking confused, says that he also noticed something and suggests they go to the second floor. The old man tries to convince the director that it's not a ghost, but a demon, since the aura in the mountains is too dense and powerful. The Taoist, his careful selection of this list of organs is not accidental, as they are traditionally believed to contain vital energy in Chinese medicine. Lee Chanan is shocked. He explains that the play awakened the demon, and the ghost was just its illusion and a warning. One of the guards asks Mr. Lo if speaking wasn't prohibited of demons and evil spirits since the founding of the country. The guard believes the Taoist is a fraud because Mr. Lee claimed he saw a fox. Ordinary. The old man, overhearing their conversation, becomes indignant, saying an ordinary fox couldn't have followed people while hiding behind the drawing of the ghost. The old man is certain the fox was just the eyes of a demon. Everyone looks skeptically at the master when he says he has already seen the essence of the problem by detecting the demon, and that the evil spirit won't dare appear while the Taoist is here. Suddenly, sinister laughter is heard. Sinister, and the CEO is startled, asking whose laughter that is. Mr. Yu realizes that the master's apprentice is missing. Principal Jono asks the teacher what is happening. The old man is confused and replies that his apprentice might have just gone to the bathroom. The CEO then asks, "Not Lee Chan." Lee Chan, seeing the guy, thinks that the time for laughing is over and it's time to get to work, so he asks everyone to follow him. There is a long hallway. A strange laugh emanates from within. Everyone is perplexed to see the master's apprentice laughing. The general is outraged that the old man's apprentice is trying to scare him and demands to know what all of this means. The teacher attempts to explain that it is simply a misunderstanding. The old man places his hand on his apprentice's shoulder, and one of the dead men behind the guy licks his fangs, saying that the guest's eyes look appetizing. One of the female ghosts, and reluctantly asks him why he won't stop laughing. The frightened apprentice says that this time, there really is a ghost here. The old man is perplexed by this. He quickly covers his disciple's mouth with his hand, telling him that there are no ghosts here, only a demon. The old man attempts to justify himself, explaining that the apprentice is too young and has fallen under the influence of an evil spirit, trembling with fear and tears welling in his eyes. The master says that although the boy has been learning from him since childhood, the Taoist didn't know how to avoid mistakes in his education, and that is why the disciple succumbed to the influence. The old man announces that he has spent a lot of energy restoring the apprentice, so they will have to stop for today. The lights go out, spontaneously, startling everyone, as they notice that someone has turned off the lights. People on the first floor illuminate the path with flashlights. The CEO believes that The power went out due to a power surge. He asks Mr. Lu to go downstairs and turn on the lights, but the man refuses. The CEO shouts. He tells Mr. Lee that it's nothing. Scared, the man goes down to the first floor and finds the light switch. Mr. Lee breathes a sigh of relief and thanks Buddha that nothing happened. Suddenly, a woman's laughter is heard. The CEO fearfully looks behind Mr. Liu. Lee Chanan looks in the same direction with interest. Mr. Liu trembles with fear and asks what happened. Behind him is a laughing ghost, holding what appears to be meat in her hand. The female ghost, Old, calls the guy Big Brother and says his hands look appealing. Lee realizes that the ghosts intend to tear him apart, but suddenly begins to eat the meat, which Mr. Liu notices, causing him to scream loudly and faint. The ghost leans towards the man, Lee Chanan. He thinks Mr. Liu is too scared, but decides this outcome is for the best. The man reaches for the black scroll, where he's hiding his sword, and the director asks Chanan if he can handle the woman's ghost, but he thinks there isn't a ghost at all. He brandishes his sword, and the woman smiles. Lee Chanan. He thinks she isn't a ghost, but a human. The woman jumps to attack, but the guy pushes her against the wall. The woman screams in pain as she slams against the wall. Chanan says he didn't smell a ghost from the start, so it has to be a person. The woman raises her head, and Lee Chanan asks his colleagues if anyone recognizes the woman. They all react suddenly, indicating that there's someone behind them. Lee swings his sword sharply, but doesn't see nobody. The CEO and the guard run away screaming, begging people to stay away. Chanan doesn't realize what's going on. Mr. Liu regains consciousness and asks what happened. Ad and Lee Chanan ask if he's okay. When Mr. Liu looks at the boy, he gets scared and faints again. Lee doesn't understand what happened because there's no one around. The guy opens the umbrella he was carrying. Lee Chanan asks Gu to check if there's anything impure in the room. The ghost says he doesn't notice anything. Lee is shocked and thinks that since the woman seems possessed, maybe there really is a demon here. The woman continues chewing on the piece of meat. A vagrant appears, wearing a hat that conceals his face. The old man tempts the ghosts with his lamp and asks to be let inside. He gives money to the surprised, holds. Gu says the woman is definitely not a ghost, and Chanan replies that she's just a local lunatic who everyone thought was a ghost. Lee. It's surprising that Gudo touches the woman's nose. For some reason, the ghost has some hairs in his hand. The woman starts to fall, but Chanan manages to catch her. He says the woman isn't crazy, but possessed by something. He looks at her white hairs and realizes they belong to a Zorro. Grandfather always prevented the house from being demolished, but after he passed away, the builders descended like comets, with special vehicles and workers. Shopkeeper, saying that he will pay for the guests' food instead. The man grabs a surprised Lee Chanan by the arm and pulls him along. The ghosts watch on in bewilderment. To the old man as he quickly leaves the dangerous street, Lee turns around and notices that the spirits are no longer visible. The old man stands in front of Lee, waving a lantern in the air. He removes his hat, revealing his face to the newly met Lee. The old man, now indignant, asks Lee Chanan if he has no love for life and how he could possibly be in the ghost market. The old man becomes very angry and starts hitting Lee Chanan with the stick of his lantern. Old man says that if he hadn't appeared in time, the cheap dead spirits would have gutted the guy and stoked the furnaces with his bones. While Lee approaches to avoid the blows, he thanks the honorable Taoist for having saved his life. The old man, surprised by this, decides that there is nothing to take from the guy and urges him to leave. Lee Chanan is confused, but the old man turns around and asks him why he's frozen in place, warning that the ghosts could devour him. Lee Chanan replies that he has nowhere else to go, but the old man insists that if he's going to save the guy, he'll see it through to the end, and suggests that he go with him. Then the old man leads the guy to an abandoned place. He explains that this was once a thriving market, but it was struck by a disaster that started a revolt. The troops rushed to the scene, and after 3 confrontations, all the survivors left, which is why now, only ghosts. Construction workers appeared near the house, but suddenly someone started setting off firecrackers. The developer was sure that the house had already been razed. Roam the place. The old man suggests that Lee Chanan enter one of the vacant buildings. The boy gets scared when he sees skeletons of people inside. At the threshold, the old man reassures him that these bones are not dangerous because they no longer concern themselves with people. The old man illuminates the skeletons with a lantern, venerating them as the owners of the house. He apologizes and asks for permission for Lee Chanan to sleep there as well. The boy remains, surprised and frozen in place. Indignant, the old man tells him not to stand still, but to help make the beds and prepare for sleep. Chanan looks at the spirits of the house's owners, which he sees above their skeletons. He realizes that the Taoist elder does not see them. The old man places the lantern to his side, takes a seat in the recliner next to him, who is sitting across from him, and says that his first Taoist name was given within Taoist circles. It will remain a secret, and in the outside world, the old man's surname is Liu, and his middle name sounds like Hing. He asks Lee Chanan to just call him that, Taoist Liu, and the old man is holding a three-dimensional object wrapped in black cloth. He asks Lee Chanan to tell him his name, and Lee Chanan introduces himself. The old man says that the world is a troublesome place, so since they are under the same roof, he will have to tell the guy something unpleasant. With those words, the Taoist takes out a huge sword from the cloth. He tells Lee Chanan that, to begin with, he is a vagabond, and therefore has nothing of value. The old man brandishes he was outraged that someone would dare to stage such a protest against him. It turned out that Cheng Gang, representing the family, had brought his relatives to sword sharply, and explains that, secondly, his sword is an old companion of the Taoist, and that it has seen as much human blood as the blood of. A startled monster recoils from the sword, preventing the old man from speaking. The boy reassures the Taoist that there's nothing to worry about, as Chanan isn't. He's not the kind of man to hold grudges. The following morning, the boy wakes up and stretches, feeling the straw bed has made his whole body ache. He looks around, only to find the room empty, with the old man's lantern beside him and his hat on the table. Lee Chanan heads outside, trying to figure out where the old man and the skeletons have gone. Suddenly, Lee spots the old man under a tree, using a shovel to bury 2 freshly dug graves. The Taoist chants an incantation over the tombs. Supreme beings of the 10 directions, countless as grains of sand, transform these worlds, saving all creatures of heaven and human beings. The 10 directions in China represent all sides of the world, encompassing the earth and the sky. While reciting the prayer, the old man holds luminous energy in his hands. At that moment, Chanan sees spirits above the tombs, happily embracing. They are the masters of the house. The old man concludes the prayer with the words, "Unite your benevolence to save the world with a single voice." He crosses his hands in a special gesture, and the old man notices that Lee's eyes are fixed on the sky. The Taoist elder asks him if he can see. Defend the building. The descendants of the house owner declared that no one would dare to intimidate them and destroy the house. The promoter was spirits, and Lee Chanan responds affirmatively. The old man asks him where he comes from and where he is going. Lei is perplexed, as he does not understand how. Explain everything to the Taoist. If it's worth discussing, he contemplates his ultimate path and conceals the yellow book in his pants waistband. While pondering, that only within himself can he discover the answer. Lee Chanan inquires of the Taoist, "Where are you headed?" And the old man replies that he is going to Yulin. Simultaneously, a couple is conversing at an inn located in the outskirts of Yulin. The woman is anxious because her son has not yet returned home, and Wang Seng, the innkeeper, is also worried about his own son, especially since it has begun to rain. Abruptly, the door swings open, and the couple's son materializes in the doorway. The parents notice a girl standing behind their son and inquire, "Who is she?" Soaked from the rain, the girl responds that she hails from the town of Chess, which is further away. From 10 li to 500 meters away from this place, he raised his hand to his face. The girl says that her husband died young, that they had no children, and that her mother-in-law and father-in-law, the unwanted daughter-in-law, was thrown out of the house. The girl explains that she doesn't have any parents, so she was on her way to her aunt's house, but it turned out that her relative had already passed away. The girl, distressed, says she doesn't know where to go now, especially since it's raining outside. The guest asks the innkeepers to be kind and take her in for one night. The innkeeper's wife smiles warmly, puts her hand on the girl's shoulder, and tells her that the guest can stay tonight, but, determined, and his assistant tried to force the boss's hand. Armed with pitchforks, shovels, and other improvised weapons, the grandfather's relatives blocked the path of that the family is now preparing dinner and invites her to have dinner with them. The girl smiles slyly. After dinner, the guest sews, and the hostess, he appreciates her help with the dishes and the laundry, but the girl tells him there's no need to thank her, as the owners of the inn have taken her in. The woman is surprised that the girl is such a skilled artisan and sews so well. The innkeeper's wife comments that her in-laws were foolish to get rid of such a skilled beauty, and that she would love to have a daughter like her. The girl replies that she can stay if her uncles don't mind. Hang Zhang and his wife blessed their son and his new wife, as they weren't overly picky when it came to choosing a life partner for their heir. The innkeeper and his wife quickly decorated the room and sent the newlyweds there. The embarrassed boy sat on the bed and then He noticed his wife sliding the wooden bolt on the door and asked her about it, to which she replied that there were many thieves prowling around the neighborhood and that they should be more careful. After securely closing the door, the girl sits next to the guy, touches his hand, and says, affectionately, that her husband's skin is very soft. The guy is confused and embarrassed. The girl tells her husband that he looks good, to which the boy responds that she looks better. The girl tells her husband that the red candle is still burning at night. The innkeeper's wife hears her son scream